Got fantastic news, folks. This episode is sponsored by Audible. Once again, the best place to get your audiobooks with some of the, if not the best quality narration out there. There is an absolute plethora of titles on Audible, and honestly, I found myself, especially in this very busy climate we're all in, 100% moving towards listening to all of the incredible options they have in stock. For our Warhammer fans out there, especially the Orc fans, I would highly recommend the Uftalk Blackhawk titles, being Brutal Cunnin, Warboss, and Da Big Daka. They are all solid titles, but specifically they are narrated by Harry Myers, who does an incredible job really capturing that orcish feel. So go ahead and check out Audible down in the description by going to audible.com/Bricky or texting Bricky to 500-500 to get started on your audiobook journey today. Thank you very much for sponsoring this video, and let's continue with the content. One of the most influential games of the 2000s was a game called Fear, an acronym for First Encounter Assault Recon. You've probably heard of it before, or at least seen the little girl from the game's cover. And the only reason I explain this is because I'm rapidly realizing that it's about to hit its 20th birthday. The game is a first-person action shooter with a bit of psychological horror mixed in. It takes all of the usual gray, shooty gunman motifs of the 2000s, but straps a horror element to it. This, along with some really impressive AI and level design, makes the game still a classic to this day, even with the 20-year-old jank. Over the past 2 decades, there have been a few sequels to the game, but not too many spiritual successors. There aren't a lot of games trying to ape Fear specifically, but rather the whole of the shooter industry got affected by its presence at the time. That is until June 2023, where a fun little indie game came out called TREPANG 2 and looked to make a modern spin on the original style of the game. So for starters, there is no TREPANG 1. This game is made by TREPANG Studios, and while I originally had the theory that it was named TREPANG 2 because it's TREPANG Studios, TREPANG Games, so TREPANG squared, apparently it's just a placeholder name for their game jam that they decided to keep. When you load up the game, it is most definitely an indie title, but still one made with a good bit of craft. I had not known the team size when I first began playing it and had assumed somewhere around 10, but finding out it was originally a solo developer that slowly expanded into a 4-person team is quite impressive for what they were able to pull off. You play as Subject 106, a prisoner of the Horizon Corporation. Horizon is generic big baddie who has massive military power, money, and hides terrible experiments behind their doors. As Subject 106, you are a super soldier, very much in the vein of the nanotechnology suit from Crisis. You are rescued from your confines by the also somewhat mysterious Task Force 27, who sends you off to do various missions to stop the Horizon Corporation from being, as the kids like to say, sus. Hot dog, 850! As a silent protagonist, you're mainly just told to go here, go there, kill everything you see, and that is the extent of the overarching story. Of course, it's not the whole story. TREPANG 2 does have bits of lore and such here and there, but spending too much time on the story would have you fail to realize that there is nothing wrong with window dressing being defined as it is. In this game's case, the juice isn't just worth the squeeze, the juice is the squeeze. The story is so painfully obvious and simple that it can be easily understood within the first hour of the game time. It very much attempts the classic trope of lots of cool looking soldiers with single word call signs that don't talk too much. And when the game shows you a giant nuclear bomb in the middle of the facility for absolutely no reason other than just tell you about it,
we can't risk this facility falling into enemy hands.
You know you're going to have to fight your new friends and blow them all up. The game trying to give them character for this inevitable game reveal might work in a different kind of game, but frankly falls flat when the dialogue is as generic as the 2000s games it takes from.
Alpha 3, watch for friendly fire. 106 is approaching the helipad.
This is such a doofus ass game, but it would be a disservice to spend any more time on the game's story considering it's not the reason to play the game in the first place. I came here to shoot waves of enemies and see horrifying amounts of blood and gore. What I got was so much more than I had expected. I like this game already. I had a discussion with a colleague, and it was the difference between a boomer shooter and a new term used for zoomer shooters. Boomer shooters often harken back to games like the original Doom or Quake, extremely fast-moving games with a few key points emphasized, such as no reloading, color keys for doors, and just general level design. Zoomer shooters was a new term discussed, and that was the idea of boomer shooters, but with gameplay that is, while still fast, relies heavily on modern movement mechanics like wall running, sliding, other kinds of tech, and also things like parrying. Popular game and butt plug supported title Ultra Kill, which I will play one day, would be an example of this type of title. Boomer shooter origins changed for the modern gamer, the zoomer shooter. TREPANG 2 is not a boomer shooter, nor is it a zoomer shooter, but if you are someone that has enjoyed the conventions of the recent zoomer shooter genre, it's a game you will feel extremely at home with. Subject 106 has the main tools of the trade, being 2 guns and some throwables, but he also has his superhuman powers being a cloak and a time slowdown ability. You can also move extremely fast, jump, slide, and do various types of melee attacks against enemies. What truly makes the game elevate itself above its simple formula is how it enters a flow state. Stamina recharges and can overcharge when enemies are killed, and your focus bar does too. So a constant stream of violence rewards you with even more violence. But murder isn't the only gameplay. It's fun, but it's also about how you go do the murdering. When the game is already as bloody as it is, the next obvious step is to find more creative ways to make it over the top. So, of course, you could just shoot your enemy in the face. That's always effective. But what about just sliding and taking their legs out from under them, grabbing them by the throat and throwing them in the air? Or perhaps attaching a grenade to them and just yeeting them at their friends. Hell, why don't you just beat them up with your Jordans or actually double drop kick them mid-air? This is the real meat of the game, the creative flow states you enter when you are fighting a multitude of enemies in the varied environment. This is only elevated by one of the most important things in any Fear spiritual successor, the enemy combat dialogue. And, of course, the screaming. Oh shit. The voice acting of this game is serviceable at best when it comes to its actual characters, but you do get some great gems here and there, especially when you have famous funny internet man Gianni doing some of the voice lines.
They come into our castle, suck our dicks, desecrate our holy grounds, and call us gay!
But when it comes to a game like this, what is the only thing that is genuinely more important than your gun? 2 guns. A source of genuine hilarity is when roughly halfway through the game's short runtime, you receive the dual wield serum, allowing you to dual wield the game's weapons. This can lead to some absolute hilarity and badass moments, as running around with 2 pistols, rifles, SMGs, or most importantly, shotguns is going to be your go-to for a majority of the late game. It does restrict a few gameplay moments, as you can no longer take enemies as shielders throw grenades, but it doesn't stop you from drop kicking enemies out of the gene pool.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Whoa, whoa! I didn't expect the drop kick. Considering Trepang 2 is a very short game, only taking me about 4.5 hours to do every mission, including all the side content, there isn't a whole lot of extra mechanics to add to its gameplay outside of what I've already mentioned. The side missions contain small bits reminiscent of Modern Warfare 3, the good one, and its survival mode, allowing you to spend money for NPC troopers and other upgrades. But it doesn't get much deeper than that. The rest of the game is to do amazing slow motion attacks, stealth between enemies, and generally be a one-man army at every point in time. Which only leaves us with one final question. Where creepy little girl? Fear, of course, is not just great shooting mechanics, fun AI enemies, and badass Rambo gameplay. It's a lot of that, but it isn't everything. The supernatural elements is that little memorable cherry on top that brings it all together. Fear had Alma, which was an ever-present threat for the story and contributed to a lot of the spooky shit and an ending to the second game that we don't need to talk about. For Trepang, the supernatural stuff is basically just monster of the week. What the fuck? About half of the missions, including side missions, have some kind of silly paranormal stuff going down. Whether it's the teleporting cultist leader, an eldritch monster by an oil rig, or Mothman. Yes, Mothman. It's Mothman. Literally Mothman. The boss bar says Mothman. For some of these, they're just okay. They tend to fall a little flat from the scares department and just feel like a Gary's Mod or Roblox themed horror map, especially with Mothman, literally Mothman, it's Mothman. For others, they do a bit of a better job. One side mission particularly stands out, which has 106 shut down a strange data center in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas. It does a good job at messing with you a little bit by utilizing good atmosphere and playing around with the in-game audio. If there was any doubt this game was made as a silly passion project by a bunch of people just wanting to make a fun game, there is no better explanation than one of the main missions where a big cloud of gas roams around, and if it catches you off guard, plays a genuinely terrible attempt at a jump scare before it teleports you back to the beginning of the encounter. That part itself is mostly whatever, but then it sends you to the back rooms. Yes, the back rooms, indeed the literal back rooms. And I just get a little bit of a chuckle because I know how that conversation probably went down. Hey man, so like, what if we like added the back rooms? I mean, sure, but like, what's the reason for it? Like just add the back rooms? I mean, yeah, it's like pretty popular right now. How do we fit it into the story? Who cares? Valid and based. Let's just have like one of the monsters send you there and then you fight a few enemies in the back rooms and then it's just like, that's our back room segment. Based and valid. I respect that level of uncaring attitude with it. It really does have the whole passion project turned into a full video game feeling just written all over it. And it's good that it doesn't try to take itself too seriously or else it would lose a lot of that general energy. It also is nice to see a game decide to make itself absolutely butt-clenchingly hard and not lie to you about it. I completed the entire game on hard mode, which based on the amount of difficulties visible made me think that I was being a baby, but no, not really. I died a decent amount of times on some of the harder final missions, and while I do chalk up a little bit of that to poor health feedback, oh god, I didn't even realize how low I was. It is also because the damage enemies put out can be very real. One of the final missions is you stopping Jeff Bezos from uploading his brain into the cloud utilizing Amazon workers that attempt to unionize. And we're loading up more donors. Am I hearing women and children being like grabbed to be uploaded? I think I just heard like a screaming family.
What the fuck?
Same, dude. cannot fathom how you were supposed to do this mission on the higher difficulties, let alone the hardest. The game even tells you just how bullshit that difficulty is, and the idea that someone can complete a time disruption mission with better armed and armored enemies with how little cover they provide you feels as if it's basically impossible. This is much less of a complaint. I appreciate when games decide to be hard still, and I appreciate them more when they're honest about their difficulty. I enjoyed my experience. It was just hard enough to be fun and still a challenge. I feel as if moving it up one difficulty would be teetering on the edge of enjoyment for me, but still having a good time. Anything past that, that's a no-go from me. But please, you are more than welcome to try. All in all, TREPANG 2 is definitely a Fear successor made by a tiny team of people who just kinda wanted to make a fun video game. It's a really good time despite its mediocre story and short runtime, and while it definitely can feel amateurish as you move through the game, that amateurish manifests itself as sort of a gleeful bit of a small group of people just getting really excited about the game they're making. The combat absolutely bangs, and for the most part, it's not trying to be anything else. And in this day and age, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Currently, the game retails on Steam for $30, and I'd say that's a bit too expensive for what you're getting. 4.5 hours with every single mission complete and on hard difficulty is a bit too short for that cost. The game is fun and worth the time you put in, but I probably wouldn't pay more than $20 for it. That said, I will link its Steam in the description because I seem to have a weird streak of recommending games and them going on sale. So let's just see what fate provides us this day. Thank you for watching this video. I'm gonna hold off on the Mass Effect series for a little bit because I want to really flesh out and we can get the hang of this new like video style, this kind of script where it's me and then voiceover and then back and forth, and just really want to flesh this out with a couple of smaller games first before we hop into, like, you know, my favorite game series of all time. If you want to check out some merch, you can buy the No Maiden shirt. It's in the description, brickymerch.com. Click it, check it out, try any of the other awesome stuff, and yeah, I'll see you for a video in the future. Bye-bye.
Come on. Obviously, you're a skater.